welcome back to the Stories of Freedom podcast. This has been an adventure getting this podcast started, and this episode is no different than the other ones. Things are going to be a little different today. Kayla is not here, but my wife Renee is going to co-host with me.
Hello.
So many of you guys, I'm sure, know her in the church. She's here more than I am anyway. But
running around like a mad crazy woman.
But anyway, so yeah, we've had some challenges this week, and like I said, I think every episode we recorded, we've had to record more than once, and this is the third time now recording. So,
late night frustrations.
Yes, very late night and very frustrating.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get it. So, if you guys could just pray for us out there that we would get these technology issues sorted out. I never thought it'd be this difficult to hook some microphones up to a computer, hit record, and throw it up on the internet. Never thought it'd be this difficult, but it is.
Little did you know.
Yeah. So anyway, we're figuring it out though, and we'll get through it. But this week, I decided rather than having a guest on, because we didn't really know how the new with being in the new building on Sunday, we didn't know how if it was going to be set up all the way or not to record using the equipment at the church. And my computer only lets us record 2 microphones, and now it's not letting me record any microphone, which is super frustrating. But I could probably do one through a different software, but that's a story in itself. So that's why Kayla and I actually on Saturday recorded an episode where I share the second part of my testimony, and it turned out there was a huge echo, and I edited it, thought I got the echo down enough, and then Renee listened to it and said, I wouldn't listen to that.
I would stop listening to it. Drive me crazy.
So I decided, well, I better re-record it. That one was really long too. It was like an hour and 20 minutes long, so I'm going to do my best to keep this one shorter and minimize the
length,
not just kind of blabble on about the last 10 years of our life, and really just focus in on just so you understand the struggle that we had and how quickly God was able to turn it around. I mean, because He turned it around quick.
Yep.
So with that being said, I think I'll probably just go ahead and get started. We'll have another one on hopefully next weekend, and then 2 weekends after that, and we'll just do them every other weekend for now, work around my work schedule, and then hopefully in the future we can maybe get them on weekly and stuff, because I've still got a lot of people lined up and just haven't been able to put them on. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started and go through our story together. That was the other thought too. When I re-recorded it, I figured it'd be nice to have Renee on the podcast with me, because we went through this struggle together. And
it was a big struggle.
It was a big struggle. We basically spent 10 years, or actually not just 10 years, but like our whole marriage struggling to be financially stable and just trying to do things on our own. And I mean, I know for me anyway, I was more frustrated at God and asking God, why are you doing this to us? I'm working super hard. And I wasn't so much asking, I was asking for His help, but more from less of a faith point of view and more of a frustration point of view, I think. And it wasn't until I fully gave that to Him. So basically, we got married in 2006, in September 2006, and early 2007, we found out we were pregnant with Joel.
Yep.
And I freaked out. I mean, I was super excited. I couldn't wait to be a dad, but we weren't financially ready for that just yet. So I freaked out, went into survival mode pretty much, and started working my butt off at everything and anything that I could.
That was both of us.
Yep. So I remember, so when that happened, I kind of gave up my goal at being a graphic designer. Got through with college right before I got married, because I was struggling to find work that would pay the bills in that career, and decided I would be an electrician. Knew that was a decent paying job, and I had some friends that were electricians going through this 5-year apprenticeship out in Sacramento, and they were doing pretty good at it and seemed to enjoy their job. And even though I never saw myself getting into construction, I'd been more of a computer nerd my whole life. I thought, hey, you know what? I got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I signed up in 2007, and it was a rough road after that because it took 2 years. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember the economy back then. Not good, and because of the waiting list and then the economy and contractors not really hiring, it took 2 years just to get started in this 5-year apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So in those 2 years, it really we struggled, and then the first 3 years of the apprenticeship we struggled as well, or at least 3 years. I mean, it was the whole apprenticeship, but the first 3 years I struggled to stay busy.
I think it was in that third year, though.
Yeah, well, it was in the 4th year that I started with.
There were points that, hey, we're doing pretty good.
There were, but they didn't last very long.
They didn't last long.
And in order for those to last, I was working out of town and stuff. I mean, you were able to go on the road with me for the longer ones, but it was still, we didn't really have a home, a place to call home. And they didn't last because after those jobs ended, I was sitting at home for a month or two, and whatever money we saved up just went out the window.
Gone.
So during that time, during those 2 years before the apprentice started, when we were waiting for that, and then the 3 years of the first 3 years of the apprenticeship, I did things like, I decided to experiment a little bit in trading currency online, and
direct sales.
And none of that really paid off, unfortunately. We did 2 different direct sales or network marketing companies, and one of them we had a little success at off the bat, but it only lasted a couple of months, and then my job took us out of town, and it kind of faded away. So what happened during those years, though, is I would go to work, and I would come home, and I would work some more. And, I mean, Joel was born at the end of 2007, and we really... And from the moment, I mean, we were pregnant with him. I was already, that's when I started working my job and then coming home doing the currency trading stuff. And it was only practicing. I wasn't even putting in real money because I wasn't there. I couldn't, quite figure it out. Mm-hmm. But I was coming home, and I like to explain all these different things that we did as kind of like a carrot that was dangled in front of me, and I kept thinking that one of these are going to pay off eventually. Yep. So I was okay at making sacrifices. I knew that you had to make sacrifices to kind of move ahead in life. Wasn't afraid to make them, but in doing so, sacrificed a lot of time with our family. So I mean, those first 2 years and 3 years, those 5 years, up until the 4th year of the apprenticeship, I was either not working and sitting at home working those other jobs or those businesses all day long, or I was going to work and then coming home and working those businesses. Yeah. A lot of sacrifice.
When you started the apprenticeship, when you actually started it, our second child came along.
Yes, Zila was born.
And I had to stop working for that.
Yep.
So that's why it hit survival mode, because our babies...
income.
Yeah, one income. Our babysitters that we had with just one child, we lost one. Moved out of state. One got a job, and then it was too much on my grandma, who would also help watch the kid, Joel. It was too much for her to ask her to watch too.
Yeah. So I mean, that was.
And daycare was just expensive.
Yeah, so when I started the apprenticeship, I mean, we went down to one income, and my income didn't actually raise the first year. It went down just a little bit, but we knew that it would go up a little bit more. Every year I'd get a raise with the apprenticeship. But even when we made good money, it didn't matter because I couldn't stay working very long. No. And then in 2012, as I started my 4th year apprenticeship, things started to look up, but didn't last very long. I mean, it was right before Thanksgiving. I ended up getting a job with a company in Sacramento and all their work was in the Bay Area. The economy was starting to pick up into 2012 and beginning of 2013, and there was a lot of work in the Bay Area. So I took a local job and That didn't have me on the road so much, but I was commuting to the Bay Area. Didn't matter though, because I was home every night. I was home on the weekends, and the paychecks were really good with that company because it was prevailing wage and the highest paid county in California. So, and I was a 4th-year apprentice, so I was making almost journeyman wages at that point.
Yeah.
And things were looking good. I thought, cool, maybe this is it. You know, this work's going to move over to the Sacramento area over the next couple of years, and hopefully by the time I finish up my apprenticeship, you know, I'll be making money and we'll be consistent, you know.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening instead is a month and a half into that job, I ended up starting feeling sick on that job. So to give you a little background, as a kid, there were a couple of times I passed out as a kid for either being hurt just very minorly or, you know, just a little bit of pain. Or also in
church.
In high school, I passed out. And it was when I was new to that church and nobody knew who I was, and I passed out in the middle of that church.
Our friend who introduced us, she had the same condition.
It did. Yep, she did. So she did, which is kind of how I was able to figure out kind of what was going on and help the doctors kind of go in the right direction. But so anyway, in 2012, I started to have, after being on this job site.
It was 2011.
No, that was 2012. 2011 is when I passed out on the job site. So I'm glad you brought that up because I did forget. In 2011, I passed out on the job site one day. And then in 2012, when I started with this company, I started getting the same feelings. I mean, I started getting sick to my stomach, dizzy, lightheaded, things like that. And sometimes very disoriented, felt like I was on the verge of passing out. So I went to go see a doctor and got kicked off that job site because they said until they figure out what's going on, they didn't want me on that job.
They didn't want you on any job.
Yeah, on any job.
They
until
said,
I got
don't come back
signed
without
off.
a doctor's note.
So I got signed off to do light duty while they were still trying to figure out what was going on. So I was in the shop and went from making good prevailing wage work to a flat rate. I mean, like a lower, much lower rate, like less than half of what I was making on that other job site, and not knowing what the future was going to hold with my health. So it took them, I don't know, probably about a month or two before I finally got diagnosed. I mean, it was a while.
Yeah. The first time you went, the doctor said, "Oh, you have allergies.
Yeah.
Take Sudafed." And I'm like, you came home with this medicine, and I'm like, looking at the side effects. May cause drowsiness. Do not operate heavy machinery. And you were on heavy machinery. I was like, you got to go get a second opinion.
So I went and saw another doctor. He recommended me to a cardiologist. And after about a month and a half, I got diagnosed with that same condition that our friend had, which was vasovagal syncope.
I'm glad you remember. I cannot
Of course
remember.
I remember. I live with the thing. But basically what that is the vagus nerve that shuts your body down when you experience trauma. It's a little overreactive in me, and it triggers with little pain, which explains why when I got hit in the arm with a baseball as a kid when I was in Little League, I passed out. And it didn't even hurt that bad, but my body's like, oh no, freak out, and shut down. And then other times, like on the job site a year before and this job site, there was something else triggering it. And it's really hard to say what it is. It could be weather, could be noise, could be dust, could be just my body going, time to shut down.
Well, in 2011, it could have been that you guys were working 13 days from sun up to sundown.
That was a second round of that. So they had toned it down to 12-hour shifts.
In 2011, when you first passed out, that's when you were working.
Oh, you're right. That
those.
Was the end of that job site. You're right. That job. You're right.
A wife always remembers.
See, take note of that. That's why we've been happily married for 2000 or for I can't even remember, 12 years now. I was trying to do the math. 12 and a half years now, because I always say you're right.
Remember.
But anyway, so with that happening, my doctor said it's not safe for you to keep doing this line of work. You need to find something else. So here we go again, and I went back in survival mode. I mean, I was at a point where for month and a half on this other job site, I was coming home. I was home for the first time. I could actually come home from work, not worry about how bills were going to get paid, spend time with our family, and have money in the bank. Mm-hmm. And then that was just taken away like that. And now I've got to go start another career. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. Mm-mm. So I freaked out again, got frustrated with God, and went back into survival mode. And for the last year of my apprenticeship, I spent, it was back to chasing the carrot. I mean, working and then coming home and working some more. Because the last few months or 6 months, not for the last 6 months, the first 6 months of that last year of my apprenticeship, I was coming home and studying for my real estate test. Yep. California has like one of the hardest real estate tests to pass. So it was really hard getting that. I didn't pass the first time and had to do it again. So that was frustrating as well. But in April of 2014, I got my real estate license, and I started. And then I had to start studying for my journeyman test.
Right.
And by August of 2014, I finished up my apprenticeship, and from April of 2014 until about November of 2014, I was working and then coming home and working some more on real estate, trying to get that business going.
And then on top of that, you were with a company in your apprenticeship program that you really liked. It was a smaller company than the other ones.
Yes.
But they were contracted with SMUD.
Utility company out there, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. And that was... we have this so many weeks of work for you, and then you'd get there, and they'd be like, no, we only have a day of work. Yep.
That happened over and over. So
that was a constant. So even though you liked the company you were with and you liked your boss, he couldn't keep you working.
Yeah, and I needed to stay with him because he was with that company. I was able to work around his schedule in the real estate company as well. Mm-hmm. So trying to, I was working with a good friend of ours in real estate, a friend that grew up next door to me. They were like second parents to me growing up, and he owns a broker. He's a broker and owns his own office in Sacramento. So between the two, I was able to work with them, and. Did that for, from April to November of 2014, just really trying to get it going. And then in November, we went up to Tahoe to visit to spend the day.
No, it was the weekend, because you were off work again.
Yeah, it was a Sunday in November, the beginning of November.
No, it was a whole weekend we stayed.
No, we didn't. Oh, you did. I came home with your dad that day, remember?
That's what I was thinking we stayed.
I know, I'm like, how do you not remember this? But now I remember.
I was like, yeah. So my parents own a timeshare up in Tahoe, and we went, and you were like, I wonder if you need a real estate license to sell timeshare. I was like, it doesn't hurt to ask. Because
well, I remember that in my training that timeshare was the direction you can go in real estate. So I was like, I wonder if they're hiring or what it would take if that's all you need to work here. So I went in and I talked to the salesperson that your parents were actually talking to. And he suggested it, set me up with a job interview. I came back next week and got the job. And at that same time is when we found out we were pregnant with Eleanor.
I think it was
a little bit
December.
after, but either way, as I was starting that job, because I started that job it was the first week of December. I went on my training, and we found out shortly after that we were pregnant with Eleanor. So we stayed in Sacramento, living in Sacramento, while I tried this job out, and where you could be with family while you were pregnant. And for those about 7 months or so, I was going to work up in Tahoe. I was gone during the week, but I would come home in the middle of the week once, but I was still gone a lot, back to, like I said, still staying in that survival mode, not spending a lot of time with family. The whole time our kids are alive, Dad's working and then coming home and working more, or he's working out of town.
Yeah.
And Dad's not there a lot. And it was really hard to do that, but it's what we need to do. And I struggled a lot in timeshare. But I saw a lot of potential. There were a lot of people I worked with that made good money, which is why I stuck with it for a year and a half. And then in July of 2015, when right after Eleanor was born, we got the keys to the place that we're renting now here in Gardnerville, and we moved out to Gardnerville. And struggled for the next year, although I did have some really good months in there, and things were looking up, and I thought that it was working out. But then they just kind of faded away. I had some other things happen at at the resort that made me decide to move on, and I started working with Bo Kruger I'm sure, Pastor Leo's son at Toyota in Carson City. And I figured it might be easier to sell cars than timeshare, and I was right. It was a better fit for me. It was more natural, and it was a lot of fun. I went in and actually made quite a bit of money right off the bat. I mean, not.
And you like selling cars.
And I like selling cars.
You like buying cars.
I like buying cars, and we bought 2 the year that I worked there. So, but so I did that, and it seemed to be working out better at first. I was, for the first time in our marriage, I think that was the longest we went with being financially stable. But the problem came when I was spending all my time at Toyota, because that's what the car business is. You've got to spend a lot of time there, just like a lot of other sales jobs and businesses.
Well, and then it followed you home.
And it followed me home. I got phone calls when we were at home, and spent some time in the back room, and had to go in, on my days off, or go in early or come home late. And sometimes I wouldn't even know until that day that I thought I was going to have off. I'd get a phone call from a customer and have to run down there real quick. Yeah. So it became really, even though the money was good, I mean, we were not rich by any means, but we were paying our bills and things were looking up, and I was enjoying my job. I just figured it was really taking a toll still on the family, because again, I was still not home. And we actually ended up getting into a big fight by almost missing your cousin Ashley's wedding.
I was so mad. I kept reminding you from January. Remember, we've known about this for a year.
Oh, now I'm going to get lectured in front of everybody on this podcast.
Yep, from January, February. Hey, did you request the time off? He knew about it for a year.
But anyway, so I almost missed that because of the job, and I mean, your cousin is like your sister to you, so that was not an option. But I ended up making it late. I missed the ceremony, but I got there for the reception, and thanks to Bo, he was able to sneak me out of there a little early that day, so that was awesome. But at that point, I think that's when we started talking about maybe looking and seeing what else was out there. And I hadn't really actively started looking, but I saw an advertisement on Facebook for Panasonic at the Tesla Gigafactory up there in Sparks, and they were hiring for a lot of different positions because they're just getting started and they're growing over the next couple of years. And I was like, and this was like at 9 o'clock at night, I saw this ad come up, and I didn't have to go into work the next day.
You found that other job.
No, I found this one first. So I went through and I was like, you know what, I'm going to put a resume together real quick tonight, and I'm going to go there in the morning and go to this career fair and see what kind of job I can get. And I was trying for, I basically went and told them what I was making at Toyota and said, these are, this is my history. I'm a journeyman electrician. I've got my not real estate, but I've been in sales for 3 years, and so I've got people skills, things like that. Looking for leadership, looking for maybe maintenance, looking for maybe safety, any of these areas that I had a little experience with,
right.
And thought I had a better chance since they were hiring a lot of people. But they shot me down on maintenance really quick. They said that I'm not well-rounded in like the mechanical aspect of it. I just know the electrical, and I didn't have experience in like hydraulics and pneumatic systems. So they're like, that you don't qualify for that, so just forget about that. Safety, you don't qualify for that. Even though I had my OSHA 30 and I'd done all these safety courses, and I was, led some safety meetings in my apprenticeship, and, I was in charge of it for one of my jobs, and they just told me I didn't qualify. Anyway, they ended up putting me in leadership, but they said that they wanted me to bring me in as kind of like an entry-level operator position, and to work with my qualifications and with my, the skills that I was bringing. They said if I worked really hard, about a year or two, I could probably work up to a couple levels and get to the point where I was making what I was making at Toyota.
Yeah.
So that was my goal going in. I put all that stuff aside, and I went in thinking leadership, management, like that's the direction I'm going.
Right.
And there was a gap between when I applied for that job and it started because they were hiring so many people, so I had to wait my turn. It was almost 2 months. And during that time, I started thinking about the pay cut that we were taking, and I freaked out. And I saw another job, a sales job, come up. And basically, it was a Monday through Friday kind of work from home type thing, set your own hours. And the potential was really good with that company. Yeah. It sounded like a lot of fun. So I went ahead and dove into that one as well. And I started that one a week before Panasonic. And I left Toyota because I was tired of not having any time at home with my family, and I went back to what I'd been doing our whole marriage. I went back to working and then coming home and working some more.
Yeah.
Because I ended up, that sales job was going to take a little while to build up the income that I needed.
As in all sales jobs.
But the commission wasn't right away. I had to build up a big enough customer base before they give me commission, because of the way that business worked. So I really started that first month. I mean, that was the beginning of August of last year in 2017. And then about a month after that, the beginning of September, I was at home one day. I'd been sitting there working, coming home and working some more. I was at home one day with Joel. I don't remember where you guys were at. The girls, you, Zila, and Ella weren't home. I don't remember where you guys were at. And Joel said...
Probably out shopping.
Probably. Well, I don't know. We didn't have money for you to be shopping.
Probably grocery shopping.
Grocery shopping, yeah, maybe that. Buying all that top ramen and hot dogs and mac and cheese that we can afford because of the pay cut I took, and chili. But we're eating like college students again, so that was fun. But kids liked it, though. They liked that food.
Love it.
Joel came up to me when they were gone and was like, "Hey, can I ask you a question, Dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, bud. What's up?" And he asked me. He said, "Are you happy that you had me?" And I was not ready for that question. And I knew why he was asking that question. So immediately I was like, of course I am. I love you, man. I'm glad that you're here. And I love your sisters. I love your mom. And I'm so happy that, I have this family. And, but it really broke my heart because, he's 9 at this time, getting ready to turn 10. I'd been working his whole life. And, I was doing it for him. I was doing it for us, for the family. But he didn't understand that. he just knows that Dad's not home. So I don't know why I asked him because I knew the answer, but I asked him anyway. Why, I said, why? Why do you ask that? And he just said, because you're not home. And when you are, you're busy. You don't have time for us. And
did you yell a lot?
Yeah, I was frustrated. So
our frustration came out to our kids. Sometimes it still does.
Yeah,
we try hard not to.
When you're stressed, unfortunately, and worried about how you're paying bills and things like that, little things, you're more easily upset and overreact. And so, I understood exactly where he was coming from. But I took that the wrong direction. Like, I was like, okay, I got motivated. It motivated me to work harder at the sales job. Instead of going, okay, I just need to be here with my family, I was like, I've got to sit there and work harder at the sales job because it's going to give me more time at home with the kids than this Panasonic job. So I basically doubled down on that and really thought that was the direction that I needed to go. And then at the end of not the end of September, it was like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks later, the men's encounter was coming up. So basically, that is a weekend in Tahoe from Friday night to Sunday morning, or Sunday afternoon in Tahoe. A group of us go with another church up in Reno, and it was the second one that our church did and the first one that I could go to. But I hadn't told...
And it was last minute.
Yeah, because I hadn't told Bill that I wanted to go. I didn't even really want to go. I did, but I was like, I don't have time for it. And then that week leading up to it, or I think it was the weekend before, I was like, you know what? I need a break. I need to get recharged. I'm feeling very drained, and I want to go up there and just kind of, I don't know, I guess just get refocused and stuff. And I didn't expect to get out of it what I did. But on Tuesday, I asked Bill, I said, I want to go this weekend to the men's encounter. And he's like, yeah, you missed that. It's been sold out for a while. And I'm like, oh. He's like, but I'll let you know if somebody cancels. And sure enough, Friday, somebody canceled. So I couldn't make it Friday because I was working Friday, but I had Saturday and Sunday off. So I went up Saturday morning, and I was not prepared for what happened. I came down that mountain a different person, a different guy, a different man, and made a new commitment to my family, to God, and boy, did life change. So basically, I felt God tell me pretty early on Saturday, you need to quit this sales job. It's taken up too much of your time. You've been doing this for pretty much your whole marriage and the whole time your kids have been alive. You've worked and come home and worked. You just need to take the job that I've given you and trust me with it. There's a lot of potential there. You just need to trust me with it. And I'm like, but I can't live off of this small paycheck, What's going to happen? Just trust me with it. And I fought them all day, and it's even funny because that night I remember praying with one of the guys that the sales job I'd start having more success. I mean, I was doing good with it. I was, things were working out, but that it would kick in faster, like sooner than later, and I get to the commission part sooner than later, so I could be home with my family. Even though all day God had been telling me to quit it. I mean, I was really fighting God on this thing. And finally, on Sunday morning, without giving anything away, sorry, you probably hear our daughter in the background. She's here with us because we didn't have a babysitter, but we need to get this thing recorded. Okay, just let her take it off.
Okay.
So, okay. There you go. So anyway, sorry about that. So Sunday morning, basically what ended up happening was they said, all right, whatever God's been putting on your heart to surrender to him, this is your time to do it. I mean, you aren't going to do it when you go home. We're running out of time here today. I mean, it's going to be over in a couple hours, and if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. And they said, we're going to take about 10 minutes here, and you need to surrender. You guys need to surrender whatever it is God's been telling you to surrender. And they played the song I Surrender by Hillsong United. And I love that band. I love that song. And, I think I told you guys last week, or last episode, it wasn't last week, last episode, that I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, not charismatic at all, didn't raise my hand, I don't think I really ever raised my hands in worship and stuff, let alone got down on my knees. But during that song, I got down on my knees and I just gave it to God. I just said a quick little prayer, and I sat the rest of the time just letting God take it from me. Basically told God, I know what you're telling me, and I'm sorry for fighting you on it, and I give up, I surrender, and it's yours. I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'm going to trust you. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I'm going to trust you. And then I just sat there, and for the last 8 minutes or so, I just sat there crying. And the crying that it was, the way I can relate to it is like when an athlete is in a competition and it's over, and whether they win, whether they lose, it's over, and you just see all that emotion and all that like weight being lifted. Yeah. That's what I felt. I mean, it was just gone. And by the end of that song, I felt free. I felt happy. I wasn't even worried. I just was like, God's got it. Like, I don't know what he's going to do, but this is going to work out. I didn't expect it to work out as fast as it did, but I was like, it's going to work out, and we'll get through this next year or two of trying to struggle and pay bills, but I'm going to spend time with my family, and God's going to take care of the finances. Mm-hmm. And I came home, and that night we had a conversation. I was like, we need a family meeting. Like, we need to talk. And I first addressed Joel, and I told him, you asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, and it broke my heart, and it's my fault. Like, you're perfectly okay asking that question. I'm glad that you did. Yeah. And I said, that's my fault. That's on me. I'm sorry. He's crying. I'm crying. And I'm like, I'm quitting this sales job. We're going to spend time together. You
got stuck with an emotional family, though.
Yes.
I cried everything.
Yeah, you were crying, and Zila started crying because we were all crying. And Ella, a little 2-year-old over here, she's just looking like, what's going on? But it was a very good, very powerful moment in our family. Yeah. And God went to work immediately. That following week, it was either that week or the week after. I don't remember, but it was like right away.
It was shortly after.
And I know it was before September ended, because that was like the 18th, 19th, and 20th, I think, if I remember right, for the men's encounter. And it was before the end of the month. I was at work, and so it was within a week and a half, and one of the guys caused an electrical problem, we'll just say that, and they called the maintenance crew out, and the maintenance crew came out, one guy came out and was like, yeah, I don't do electrical, I don't know electrical, we're going to have to call somebody else, and it's probably going to be a while because we only got one guy that knows electrical. And the guy that kind of was heading up our department, that was a step above me, was like, well, Chris over here knows electrical, he's an electrician, like he can help you. So I went over and helped him kind of troubleshoot the problem and figure it out, but he still didn't want to do anything, and I didn't have any kind of say in what could be done because I wasn't in maintenance. So, but I had it figured out. I figured out what needed to be done, and while he was waiting for the other guy to come out, he's like, "So you're an electrician?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "Well, why aren't you over here in maintenance? Like, why are you over here as an operator?" And I'm like, I mentioned it in my career fair, and they told me no, because I don't know mechanics. I don't know hydraulic systems, pneumatic systems. I've never worked in manufacturing. And he goes, "That doesn't matter. We need electricians. Like, we teach you that other stuff. We need electricians." And I'm like, "Well, who do I talk to?" So he pointed me in the right direction, and I mean, it still took about 2 months of pestering them. But I mean, as soon as I talked to my supervisor, he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you were an electrician."
Yeah, you had to go and talk to a bunch of different people. Oh, when you came home and told me, I was like,
but he's like, "I didn't know you were an electrician. Like, I didn't know that." So he's like, "Yeah, let me get you let me figure this out." So he talked to somebody, came to me later, and was like, "Yeah, we need you." So so it took about 2 months, but went through the process and got hired on. And in December, I started. Here's the other thing. Like, when I took that position, or before I took that position, when I talked to the guy in maintenance, I didn't know what a maintenance tech made up there, like money-wise. So I just asked him. I was like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, what does, I mean, it didn't matter. It's a step up, and I knew it paid more than what I was getting paid. But I was like, just out of curiosity, what's the pay start off as a maintenance tech?" Come to find out, it's the same level of the lead position that I was trying to work to in the next year or two. So, I mean, it basically happened. What could have taken up to 2 years took 2 months to happen. And it started that week after I surrendered everything to God, a week and a half, whatever. And it was just like, my goodness. I mean, God just worked it so fast and turned everything around. And my schedule, the way my schedule is up there, I work 12-hour shifts, so I'm gone all day, especially with the commute. Yeah. But I only work 2 days, and then I get 2 days off. And then every other weekend, I either work 3 days or I get those 3 days off. Yeah. So I only work like 14 days out of the month. Yeah. And we get a lot of vacation time, a lot of stuff like that. And
once you committed to not doing the sales job, we had a lot more time to do. Together.
I know we've been busy the last couple weeks, but I've actually had time to help you out around the house more. Yeah. Do dishes for you more, which I know you hate dishes.
I hate dishes.
Joel loves to play catch with the football, so we go out and play football all the time. Yeah. And then Zila jumps in and Ella jumps in, and I can go hang out with them in the front yard. I don't feel guilty anymore when I'm at home not working, because we're paying the bills.
We're playing with our kids.
And we're playing with the kids, and I mean that's what I wanted to do the whole time they were alive anyway. But I felt guilty because we weren't paying the bills, and as a dad, as the provider of the family, I'm like, I got to get out there and make money. So if I'm at home, I'm making money. So or I'm trying to make money, and that's the funny thing. All that time that I spent doing all this other stuff, I never made any money off of it.
We were struggling the whole time.
I think the most money I made off of any of those things I did, was my sales. We made a decent amount of money for the first couple months, but Uber, because I signed up for Uber too when we bought our Prius. Actually, it's before the Prius. It was with the Jeep too.
The Jeep.
But I signed up for Uber because I'm like, hey, that's free to sign up and I can make money. But I don't even have to do that anymore. Mm-mm. We're not rich by any means, but we're paying our bills. We're putting money in savings. We're paying down debt, and the future looks bright. We're spending a lot of time together, a lot more time together as a family. We're playing board games together, which I never had time for before.
I love board games.
And
pass that love to our children.
They love playing board games. And what was the other thing too? Oh, and then even with my job, this is just the beginning of this career. I mean, there's so many directions that I can go. They're still building this out for a couple more years, and they've got more departments that are going to open up. They're still building the maintenance crew up. There's a possibility that if I can go back to school and they'll pay for most of it, like 90% of it, and maybe I can go into electrical engineering and do that stuff, which is a big pay increase as well. And I mean, there's a future there, and there's a future with our family, and it feels good. I mean, surrender to God, and finally, decided to stop being afraid and stop letting that fear control me and being in survival mode, and just give it to God and say, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to do something. And immediately he did something.
It was awesome.
What we tried to do in 10 years, he did in 2 months, which is ridiculous. So if you're not giving something to God, if you're not surrendering something to God, even if it's your life, maybe you're listening to this and you haven't even given him your life yet, surrender your life to him. I mean, I'm not promising everything's going to be, like perfect.
We still struggle.
We still struggle. And we still get busy. Like these last couple of weeks, like we've been busy, but and we've been running around like crazy. But there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's definitely, if you surrender your life to God, or you surrender
it's
something
peace
to God,
within the chaos.
that's exactly what it is.
Because we still have chaotic lives, busy lives, but we're not like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's a peace.
It is. I mean, it's like I said, when I surrendered to God up there at the men's encounter, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I had peace. There wasn't this weight of fear and this burden. There wasn't any of that. I just had a peace with God, knowing that somehow He was going to provide, and He did. And that's actually where God also told me I needed to start doing this podcast again, which is why I recorded the first little intro in October, because it was right after this. And this is also where I got the idea to call it Stories of Freedom, because of the freedom that I felt when I gave it to God. It's my story of freedom. It's our story of freedom. And there's people out there that, when you really surrender your life to God, when you decide to stop living your life on your own, there's so much freedom in that.
True story.
So, is there anything in that I missed, or that you wanted to cover again, or bring up?
Just in that surrendering to God, we started tithing.
Oh, that's the other thing too.
Our paychecks, our small stuff, we did off and on before we moved to Gardnerville. But once we moved to Gardnerville, it's been a more constant.
Yeah. Yep.
Tithing
more, and we've struggled less. Even times when it's tough, we have struggled less once we started tithing.
God,
even when
He provides.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's our story. That's the second part of my testimony. I wanted to share that sooner than later anyway, so I figured this week would have been a good week, or this weekend would have been a good weekend when I didn't know how the thing was going to, but we've had technical problems, so again, just pray that we get that figured out, and I promise I will do my best to get these up every other week. Really the reason why they haven't, the biggest reason, is because of the technical issues, because we have to keep re-recording these and rescheduling them, and it's super frustrating. So it's not for lack of trying or anything like that. We are trying. So just pray, because I think the enemy is coming against us pretty hard on this.
Doesn't want people to get their stories out.
Yep. I think that's it.
I mean, hearing someone else's testimony, it could be exactly like yours.
Yep.
And if you don't hear it, you don't know. You think you're going through the struggle on your own, and you're not. There are other people who have the same exact story as you.
Yeah.
Might be a little different because they're different people, but
the other thing too is if you know somebody that's going through something that you can't relate to, and then you hear a story on here of somebody that's going through the same thing they're going through, then you can have them listen to the episode, or if they won't listen to the episode, you can just share with them their story and maybe be able to reach them that way, whether it's your story or somebody else's, or your struggle or somebody else's. These stories are gonna get out there, and they're gonna help people, and so you might hear a children's song in the background. Our daughter has moved closer to us with the phone, and she's watching kids' videos on YouTube. But she's done very well, other than that slight interruption in the middle there. But she's done very well and been very patient, and now she's not being patient anymore.
So that,
I think we're going to have to, with that, I think it's
time to end.
That's the podcast for this week, the story for this week, and I'm done sharing my story. I'm looking forward to hearing everybody else's. I've got one possibly that we're recording next week that will go up the following weekend, a week from this weekend, and then 2 weeks after that, I've got another person coming on as well. So I know we've got the next couple guests lined up, and I am looking forward to hearing both those stories. because from what I hear, they're pretty incredible.
Kayla will be joining you, not me.
Yeah, Kayla will be joining us. She'll be back. It's just technical issues and then our story. That's why Renee's here. But maybe you'll be on someday to share your testimony when you can figure out how to put it together.
I'm too long-winded, so we'll see.
Somehow I made this thing over half, or no, it's half the length that it was when we recorded on Saturday. So I think you'll figure it out. Anyway, all right, guys. You guys have an awesome week. Have a blessed week, and I look forward to listening to another story with you guys again.